And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a man who is still waiting on his diamond necklace from Max Clark. He is Cody Stavenhagen. How you doing?
That's good. I think that would be outside of company policy to accept a gift that large from a source. I think the limit is $20. So we're way over that. Although maybe you get one from like a vending machine or something. Even that would be somewhat of an ethical gray area. So
yeah, well,
got to hold my journalistic standards here.
It was quite the moment there for the Tigers. Obviously, Tarek Skubal is Tarek Skubal, and Max Clark, one of the top prospects in baseball, and little bit of a "we accept you" type deal from Skubal's end or whatever. Like we're like you are part of the family in kind of like a weird way, and the Tigers, and I don't know how every team is or whatever, but the Tigers, I feel like over the past 7-8 years, have always kind of done a good job, like the players, of kind of bringing in the prospects and making them feel like part of the organization. I mean, every single time a hitter that just got drafted would take BP in Comerica, you guys would report on Miggy being like, hey, we need you or whatever. And he did for Riley and all that stuff. And that's cool. Like that's something that, is sort of the beauty of the game. In the more cynical sense, like my first thought was, will these guys ever be teammates? There are varying factors that will determine the answer to that over the next couple of years, Cody. But if they do end up being like stewards of the organization together at the major league level, that would be one of the moments that we'll look back on fondly, and possibly not so fondly, depending on what happens. So anyway, moving on.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Max Clark bought Tarek Skubal a chain. Skubal had said
upon request.
Some interview that he wanted. He actually said he wanted the MC one, but Clark got him on with the TS initial. It was pretty cool, and did talk to Tarek a little bit about it afterward. I did kind of like what he said about, like, we want Max to be himself. That's one of the good things about our culture. We want guys to be comfortable. And as we had talked about a week or so ago, he pointed out, like, I mean, he's a grinder too. Like, if you don't think he is, one thing I appreciate about him is he's diving into the details. Like, he works really hard. So, at least in theory, the players seem to respect Max Clark, just like we've heard from every coach, everyone in the organization.
A lot of enthusiastic high fives when he had a sac fly in his first, major league spring training game here a couple weeks ago. That, again, one of those moments we could look back on a couple of years and be like, that was the beginning of something. We'll see. In regards to the more near future, we do have a decision. The Tigers have decided on their 5 that they are going west with. That's fun to say consecutively. Mm-hmm. That would be Casey Mize, and that would be Jackson Jobe to round out the rotation. That obviously means Kenta Maeda will be in the bullpen. We'll get to him in a second. But Cody, this is why like what we do is a lot of fun. You're writing stories throughout the winter and then into spring, and it's like, what are the Tigers going to do? What do you? Well, at the end, when the decision is made, it just seems like a very simple and, I don't want to say easy, but like the decision to make. It seemed like the decision to make, and so therefore, like, not shocking or whatever that Jackson Jobe will start the season in the rotation. That Casey Mize, with his spring, with all the stuff that he had worked on, will be in the rotation, and Kenta Maeda, who did have himself a nice spring, and I think should get credit for that. Again, we'll talk about him in a second. Going to the bullpen. This all just feels like the right moves for the Tigers to make.
Yeah, I agree. This is how I had it projected. This is what seems to make the most sense. I think by the second half of camp, it was pretty clear it was going to be hard to keep Casey Mize off this roster. And Jackson Jobe, I think the prospect promotion incentive always loomed pretty large over this. I do ask myself, if that didn't exist, if the Tigers didn't have the capability to get an extra draft pick, or if he didn't have the capability to finish as a top 2 Rookie of the Year vote getter and earn a full year of service time, would he be in the big leagues right now? So in a way, I mean, the stuff is electric, but as we talked about in our last episode with Austin Jackson, like, he's got hit around a little bit. He's still struggling to put away guys with 2 strikes. there's a world where I think if these things didn't exist, you could argue, let's stash him in Toledo, let's accrue an extra year of service. In a way, this is why this is a really good rule. And simultaneously, the upside of Jobe is pretty hard to deny. I think he left just enough room to make you question it. Cater Montero pitched just well enough to, keep things like somewhat uncertain heading into the final days. But when it comes down, it all checks out. I think Jobe had to be in the rotation. The prospect promotion incentive really made it to where he had to be in the rotation. Montero showed some good things, but just as much has some command issues, I think, still to iron out. And then Casey Mize. Look, Kenta Maeda would probably be in this rotation had Mize not really pushed and really made a compelling case. Even though Maeda is heading to the pin, he's finishing with like 23 strikeouts, 1 walk or something to that effect in spring training. All in all, a pretty good spring for one Kenta Maeda. At the same time, I think you feel just more comfortable having him in the pin. And then off that, really excited to see what Casey Mize is going to do. He had a good spring last year. It didn't fully translate to the regular season. He had an even better spring this year, and I'm a little more convinced it can translate if he keeps throwing the splitter like this, if the slider remains good, if he can miss bats like he has through most of the spring. It's almost like starting all over again with Casey Mize.
Yeah, I do think it's important to acknowledge like the upside. That feels like you don't typically use the U word with guys that have college pitchers drafted that high and then have kind of gone through the major league career that Casey has, and that includes injuries as well. But it still does feel like there's upside with him, and we're gonna incorporate. Thank you everybody who sent us questions via X for a mailbag episode as we are in opening week. Like I said on X, Austin was cooking, so we just kind of let him go, and then was like, we'll get to these questions later. So go watch, listen to that episode if you haven't already. But one of the questions that we got was like, is Casey gonna like keep all these like variations, slider variations, like, or is he gonna like focus more and have like be like a true 3-4 pitch guy once the games count? Do you have any kind of read on that?
Not fully. His last outing against the Red Sox, we didn't have full pitch tracking, so it was a little hard to tell, some of the pitches, what did they classify as. The slider with more depth, he definitely used several times, and it began to look really good. That seems to be the one that has kind of clicked for him this spring. And then he's still throwing the traditional bullet slider. He has one, I guess, that's more of a sweeper, a little more horizontal. I feel like we haven't seen as much of that, but then you could also argue like the sweepy one and the depthy one, like which is which. It can be kind of hard to tell. But I think we've seen a bigger slider that he has had success with, and the bullet slider that he's kind of thrown before. It seems like we're looking at more 2 sliders versus 3 sliders for the most part. But he maybe has one in his back pocket. If he wants to throw something that looks really big, is totally designed just to get a chase, he could still maybe break that out in a certain circumstance. I just think it's good that he's continued having success. These haven't all morphed into one breaking ball that is just meh. They've kind of gotten better really throughout camp. He's gotten a little more feel. It has to translate to the regular season, but I'm leaving spring training pretty encouraged by the secondary pitches, really, especially the splitter. Like we talked about, it's been this great mystery. The splitter has been dynamite all spring. It's been now 3, 4, 5 outings in a row. I really hope that translates to the regular season because it changes everything, and it's more like the Casey Mize that the Tigers drafted in 2018.
Yeah, and I think to kind of tie a bow on that, it seems to me that this is an outcome that you would build a rotation around. Basically, is that like we at the back end we can have a Casey Mize with this kind of potential still untapped, and it makes your rotation just that much stronger as other guys kind of ascend, and it's like not necessarily a knock on him that he's like in the back or whatever. So I just think that's good to know. And we're gonna get some more mailbag questions, including what's it like socializing with these Tigers riders? We'll get to that this episode, but first, a word from our sponsor.
Hair thinning is very common, very frustrating problem that many men deal with. From stress and nutrition to hormones to lifestyle, so many internal factors affect what you see on the outside. Luckily, Nutrafol is here to help.
Thinning hair is different for men and women, so a one-size-fits-all approach to their hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code FOUL. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code
All
FOUL.
right, I did want to touch on Montero just a little bit more, Cody, because we did get a question. I want to say it's a moot point, but it turned out not to be true, from Patrick McCulloch, who basically asked, like, why didn't we believe Montero was a more viable candidate to start the season in the rotation? There's, based on last season, based on the spring, there's really nothing that he did that like made us kind of dismiss it. I think it was more circumstantial, but at the same time, I wonder, like, if you could shed some light on, like, how the organization views him. And basically what I'm getting at is, like, let's just say Maeda gets hurt. Is that a situation where they would want Montero, or they're going to, like, just keep him stretched out starter period? Timing of that could dictate, what that is or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious what you see as Montero's, like, more immediate role/focus before inevitably guys get hurt and you got to, like, fill in start gaps.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I like Cater Montero. I mean, I think I was higher than some people, on him this offseason. I would have had him above Casey Mize in the pecking order, but like we just talked about, Casey Mize came out and really reasserted himself. That, in a way, meant kind of bad news for Cater Montero. So in terms of his chances to make the rotation, that would have been one of my questions. Like, who are you taking out? Jobe, I guess. But you're really going to take out Jackson Jobe. It was just hard to see. There's not the PPI, the external factors that there are with Jobe. He hasn't looked quite as sharp as Casey Mize. And then kind of conversations I've had with officials and people around the Tigers all spring is that, like, they really like Cater, but they do see him just needing a little more polish, a little more development, repeating the mechanics, attacking hitters. He is still prone to maybe some elevated pitch counts or just at bats that drag one too long a little bit. Still learning how to best use his stuff. In a way, that's encouraging because they think there's even more to unlock with this guy. He always seemed, out of these guys, the one who maybe had the most to benefit by starting the year in Toledo. They definitely want to leave him stretched out. We'll see if there's a bullpen opening or whatever, but I don't think he would be the first guy they would call upon. Even maybe Ty Madden has more of a relief profile. And, out of Chafin, Herter, Hannafy, two of those guys probably are going to start the year in the minor leagues. So I think there's a good chance we could see Montero eventually slot in as a starting pitcher. They're going to leave him in that role until circumstances dictate otherwise. It was a good spring for Montero. It was encouraging. He was just up against some really tough competition that kept him from ever profiling as, like, a favorite for a rotation spot.
So we're keeping with the pitching theme. That we do got to get to some hitter questions, but we'll stay on pitching here for a second. This is from Nick Morgenstern. Basically, it's the Jackson Jobe stuff is all fun right now. However, like, there are going to be times where he struggles. We've seen everything not be as sharp, in spring. And you talked about how, like, yeah, it's a funny Nat's ass quote or whatever, but, like, we do kind of, the Tigers are wanting a little bit more precision there, and that's fine. That's part of it. If you look at a lot of projections for Jackson Jobe, you see, like, ERAs in the 4.6s. You see, the K per 9 in the low 7s to low 8s. Like you probably would like a little bit better than that, right? So trying to put it mildly. So I guess kind of do you have, and I don't want to put you in a weird spot because you're probably going to end up voting on this award later, but do you have like an idea of the floor for a Jackson Jobe? And is this a situation weirdly that will benefit him, that he's not like a Skeens guy where and I mean that in a way, he's not immediately asked to be the face of a rotation and organization, the sport, so like he could just kind of be himself, for lack of a better term, probably for the first time in his professional life, even if he is going to carry the tag of number 3 overall pick and all this stuff. You have an idea of a floor for Jackson?
I think the floor can be pretty high. Even I'm not sure he's going to be lights out from day one. I think we're leaving spring a little less amped about Jobe than we would like to be. The lack of swing and miss or finishing guys on strike 3. We entered camp knowing that was like an issue, and he talked about adopting the curveball as a way to combat that issue. And it was like, all right, this guy gets it. He's making changes. He should be better. In his spring outings, he still was kind of running into some of the same issues, not putting guys away and giving up some loud contact. I think that is a reminder. One thing I have always said, like, I think there are going to be some ups and downs. I think he's going to have some dominant outings. He's going to have some outings where he gets tagged. 4.6 ERA is still pretty high. I mean, I think he can be even better than that. He's going to be with Chris Fetter and Robin Lund every single day. There should be a world where he gets better. I don't think it's all going to be fun and games, but so I'll say this. I think it's going to be an up and down first half. And I think by the second half, by the end of the season, he might be the second best pitcher on your team. Because, I mean, the stuff is just there. He clearly has some more to learn, some more to figure out, but the sheer talent is pretty undeniable. Once he kind of makes that next level adjustment, man, he could be pretty special. So, I think at one point I'd said like a 3.5 ERA. I could see if it was higher based on what we've seen this spring, but I also think there are going to be some outings that it all clicks and that he kind of wows everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick on Casey Mize, we had a question like, how good is he going to be? Give your most optimistic take. I mean, I think he could be your third guy. That's like my most optimistic take. That's my most optimistic take. I don't, for all the reasons that we already discussed. So want to move along here, but I did want to acknowledge that from Brian Morosi.
Real quick, there's still the chaos option of Casey Mize closer, right? Wouldn't that be fun? Probably not going to happen, but if you're just looking for like a fun scenario, I think we're going to talk about Alex Cobb in a second. If he gets back and miraculously everyone is healthy, and maybe Mize has been good but not great, or Jobe's just been lights out. Like, I don't know. For as much as Mize has earned the right, based on what he's done this spring, to stay a starter, if you're just looking for getting weird in the second half of the season, I don't hate the idea.
Well, you said the magic word there, Cody. I was reading your story, which is on The Athletic. You can go read it if you haven't already, about Mize and Jobe. And it's all this like feel good stuff. Two guys on similar paths but different points in their career, obviously, make the team or make the rotation, I should say. And it's like, oh, great. But my mind is automatically going back to this whole Alex Cobb thing. So I was like, I asked you, it's like, so we know their policy on 6-man rotations, but like, what happens to this feel good hunky dory stuff when Alex Cobb is healthy?
Yeah, I know I just brought him up earlier, but it's also like, who? Because Alex Cobb's been kind of out of sight, out of mind. He is throwing bullpens, but sounds like he's not going to be ready to go by the end of April, and then you're probably looking at a rehab start, so you're pushing that into May. I would say, again, like, you'd be extremely fortunate if you have your top 5 guys all still healthy at that point in time. I don't think the Tigers would ever really want to do a 6-man rotation thing for very long, but it is worth considering. There are going to be some restrictions on Jobe's innings at some point in time, so maybe there's a world where you could build that in a little bit. I don't think AJ Hinch would ever want to limit his bullpen like that for more than a week or two. So I'm just not that worried about it. Like, it is kind of telling how you feel jacked about the rotation right now. It's like, oh, there's another guy they signed and paid $15 million, and
Yeah.
you could argue like he's going to come back and you're going to have to pitch him, and it's going to make your rotation worse. I don't know. I still think Alex Cobb can be pretty good if he's healthy. I don't know how he's going to slot in. I'm also just not that worried about it. We ask this right now, and then we're one hamstring or elbow away from like you'll be very thankful Alex Cobb is soon coming back.
That's true. That's true. I mean, like I said, a lot of times these things work out the way that they are intended to. All right, let's go to a J-Hen question. Basically, this is from Steve Cook. What kind of season do you view for him? And I think that is dictated by what kind of role does he get. And so I'm kind of changing your question a little bit there, Steve. But I think we'll get to the same place, which is I think I'm not want to like do stats or whatever, but I think Justin might end up being like AJ's like favorite guy to ride in. Like I think that's like I think AJ's he's gonna be like it's like the manager's hitter. You know what I mean? Like like he's just like, all right, I'm gonna put him up here, and I know especially against lefties, which go look up what he did against lefties. Small sample size last season. I think there might be excuse me, sorry. He might be one of your most valuable hitters. Not the best, but like one of your more valuable presences at the plate this season. And like, we're going to look back and think like, yeah, it was kind of silly that there was like a real possibility that he wasn't going to make the team coming out of spring.
I could see a world where J-Hen finishes like third on this team in home runs.
Okay.
I'm not quite ready to like plant that flag, but it's not that hard to envision. If he gets the at-bats, he has some good power, and he gets on base. Don't know if he has a home in the field. Will his defense be good enough to justify even, writing his name in the lineup often? But I'm pretty optimistic for J-Hen. I think there's a pretty high I know we're talking about floor and ceiling and upside. It sounds like we're doing an NBA draft podcast today, but like I think there's a pretty high ceiling maybe for Justyn-Henry Malloy this year. I'm not comfortable pegging exact stats or anything, but I'm kind of bullish on J-Hen entering the season.
So along those lines, we got a couple questions. One of them was from Andrew Hamilton about, and Brad Moyer chimed in as well, about basically like trading for a right-handed bat. Off podcast, I've asked you this at various times during spring. It's like, are you hearing anything, And you've basically been like, nah.
No. Also, the question I come back to a lot is like, who? I mean, who? I've said before, Taylor Ward's the one name I like. He ain't going anywhere. And you could get some fringe guy, even looking at the guys who are on waivers or opt out of minor league deals right now. It's like Garrett Hampson, who's a little bit of a name you might be familiar with. And then it's like you look at him and what's he bring you? He can play the infield. He doesn't get on base. He doesn't really hit. I just don't think he's an upgrade over anything you have. It's kind of a Ryan Kreidler type, really. Less power, probably. Brandon Drury, who 2 years ago was great, and then last year was -2 WAR. More of a corners guy. Is that an upgrade, or would you rather give it bats to J-Hen and to Torque? And for as much as you have some glaring holes, and let's be real, that there are some areas on this team offensively I'm pretty concerned about. I don't think it's going to be easy to just go upgrade based like at this point in the year. So I think the Tigers would be more comfortable rolling with young guys than going out and making some addition. Now, I wouldn't rule out, like maybe there's some guy Scott Harris loves that we just haven't identified, the McKinstry type. That guy could be out there, but I don't think they're going to trade for anyone of note anytime soon.
Yeah, so like the name Kobe Mayo gets thrown out, and I'm just going to – I'll just lay it out like this. I just don't think Baltimore is in the business of dealing highly touted.
Deal their assets. Also, what are you trading for Kobe Mayo? I saw someone say Matt Manning. You think the Orioles want Matt Manning? I promise you they don't.
It would probably not work out, but I just like he just turned 23 in December.
Yeah.
Like there's I just don't see it now. Like I would love for
Colby Mayo's a great name. Let me be clear. I asked who. That's a great name. Unfortunately, a name that the Orioles don't like to trade their prospects. What sort of capital would you give up? It would have to be more than Matt Manning. Hard to see it playing out.
It'd be a lot of stuff that you would be uneasy about including in a trade. Just phrase it like that. All right, this is from Joe Ramp. Under the radar prospects. I love this question because it allows us to talk about some guys that, we don't necessarily get a chance to all the time because they're not like the headliners. And also like, I think allows us to just like not have to say like, how great could Max Clark be or whatever. And then basically set yourself up to be wrong. So I like this question. Two names came to mind, Cody, and then we'll go to you. I thought Jake Miller was a lot of fun in that not futures game, but the spring breakout. He was a lot of fun to watch. Left-handed, 6'2", like it's a guy who's still young. Like that I didn't know much about him, but he looked like a guy that like, all right, well, I gotta follow this guy a little bit more. And then second one, so I want to do a pitcher and a hitter. It's not necessarily like under the radar as much as like I just gotta follow this guy all year. I gotta figure out what the deal is, and that's Max Anderson. I remind you, Cody, Max Anderson was a second-round pick in 2023. Like not seventh, like he was a second-round pick. I'm pretty sure they gave him north of $1 million, after drafting him, and he's a college guy. Didn't necessarily profile to like have a position, but like the bat. He also bats righty. So, in theory, like if he could turn into something that might give you a little bit more balance. As of now, he hasn't like popped or whatever. He's in the 20s he keeps kind of going down the prospect rankings, but a lot of that has to do with like some of the great talent that has been brought in. That's okay. He's a lot younger than you think. He just turned 23 a month ago. So as a college hitter, I was like, oh, is he already like 24? Like, I don't know. He hit 270 in West Michigan last year, and he was also in Erie for 5 games. So don't really have anything to take from that. But I'm just curious. He's a guy who has dabbled in every infield position except for shortstop. So I'm curious, like, whether they try to make him do some third base. He played a lot of that at Nebraska. Is he a guy who's just going to have to be a first baseman and have to hit his way to the majors? I'm just curious. So I think that qualifies as under the radar.
Yeah, and we've seen some Max Anderson this spring. Not super highly touted, but kind of an interesting player. I'd immediately point to Troy Melton, who pretty soon is not going to be considered under the radar. If you look at Fangraphs top prospects, I like their lists a lot because they tend to be a little bit different and a little more brutally honest in their scouting reports. Fangraphs love some Troy Melton, just like I do. They have him as the Tigers' number 6 prospect. He had a 5 ERA in Erie last year. Counting numbers weren't good. The stuff is pretty nasty, though. Upper 90s fastball, crazy extension. That's what I really like. He gets down the slope. He's tall, grades out really highly there. He's got a good changeup. He's got a good slider, curveball. Still learning pitching. The Tigers have really altered his mix. Last year seemed like a learning, growing, adjusting year. And I think the Tigers are kind of counting on him to take a pretty big leap and maybe be pushing toward big league time this season. He's my guy I really like. Another name just off the top of my head, Ethan Schuffelbein. He was drafted number, I think, 72 overall last year out of high school. One of those guys, we haven't seen, easy to kind of forget about, but a pretty high upside, there's that word again, pitcher who I really liked at the time of the draft. I'll be interested to see him throw in his first pro season.
That's an above slot guy. You're right. 72 overall. Gave him just under 1.8 million. So like not enough in investment there, Cody. So yeah, I think that's a good like reminders there. And this, I don't even know if we would even consider this guy like a prospect or whatever. But in terms of dudes, I just loved watching in spring training games whenever he got his opportunity. Patrick Lee. That guy was I just enjoyed watching.
He really was fun. I have no idea if he has any future, but
no idea. But every time I watched him, I was like, you know what? I just like watching him play baseball. So, like, he looks like he's going to be in Erie to start the year. But, there are a couple funny moments, like the visiting announcing team would be like, Hao-Yu Lee with a diving catch in center field. It's like, well, no, you just saw the Lee and, went to the top prospect Lee. There's another guy named Lee, Patrick Lee, who is a lot of fun to watch. So, good question there.
Speaking of the great Hao-Yu Lee, check out the Fangraphs scouting report on him. It pairs with some of the things I've been seeing, hearing. They have him ranked number 14 on the Tigers list, which is not exactly what you want, and questions basically his ability to hit fastballs, hit velocity. Says he's still missing heaters at an average rate and hasn't even been exposed to a lot of big league caliber velocity yet. For as much as I like Hao-Yu Lee, for as much as the Detroit Tigers love them some Hao-Yu Lee, he's going to have to get on time and hit some fastballs in AAA for kind of the best version of Hao-Yu Lee to come to fruition.
Yeah, I think it's going to be we're going to get a good litmus test about how much they do love him, because like how soon, what circumstances, especially if they hold them more highly than some others. I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. All right, this is not a mailbag question, but we have not gotten to it because we got carried away with pitchers and some other stuff. Thank you, everybody who did send us a question. And yes, we will get to the socialization of the Beat Gang over there in Detroit. But we do have to talk about Parker Meadows, Cody, who is 4 weeks away from being 4 weeks away. No, I'm just kidding. I just made that up. But he's getting tested, and they seem like a little, as I would say, AJ came across as optimistic as one can be, given that this is a nerve issue in the throwing arm, and there's nothing really to do except wait. And that's not necessarily me thinking, oh, it's going to be okay. I have no idea, but it did, at least we did get some sort of update. We'll be waiting for Parker Meadows for at least another month, and probably more.
Yeah, it's not really good news. I think everyone was hoping it'd be quicker than that, even once we all accepted, once the Tigers accepted he wasn't going to be ready for opening day. But the latest test came back. The nerve specialist out in Phoenix recommended 4 weeks of rest. So that means we're pushing Parker just being up to the point he's able to throw into late April. Now, the optimism you mentioned comes in because he's still able to work out, run, even do some light hitting. Basically, they're hoping that he won't need as big of a ramp up as if he were completely shut down. But I'm still thinking, okay, he gets up, he's throwing. Got to make sure you build almost like a pitcher, like build his arm back up properly. Even though he's able to do some light hitting, you got to have him face real pitchers, real at-bats, upper-level pitchers. It's going to be more than like a 3-game rehab assignment, I would think. So now you're probably talking mid-May at the very earliest, and that's assuming 4 weeks is actually all it's going to take. We still don't know. So you push that a little further, you're talking to June, then you've missed 2 months of Parker Meadows. It's really unfortunate for a guy coming off a great year, for a guy who's very valuable to the team. You got to hope that this timeline doesn't get pushed back any more than it already has.
Yeah. It's the timing of it is something that I'm like, are we overreacting because it's the beginning of the season, and then like by June it's like, did it really matter because guys get hurt anyway? But like the anticipation of everything just kind of ups the ante, and then just the mystery of it makes it a lot worse. So
yeah,
we'll see. We'll have to see. It's good that he can. Maybe there's some VR simulator that he can do to like get his timing down.
Probably is.
Yeah. It's like a nice little story about that in The Athletic. I think would be fun to read. All right, it's finally here, Cody. Robert James, this is for you. We finally have remembered and gotten to what is it like just like hanging out with the guys whose bylines that we read. So Chris Pekoski, Jason Beck, Evan Petzold, Evan Woodbury, like everybody else that's involved in the Tigers beat. So many great writers, so many great people that have like, to be on top of the team. What's it like hanging around these guys, man? Like, is McCoskey, like, does he like IPAs or something? You know, like what you got to give the people a little bit of an idea of what these guys are like. You travel with them a lot. You're hanging out, or I won't say like hanging out. We'll see, but like you're in the same area on the road a lot. Like what personify these guys for us, Cody?
If we were like a Patreon, we could have some sort of like exclusive access. And I could like say more, like Tiger territory off the record or something. But no, like a very interesting dynamic in a baseball beat is that you do spend more time with these people who are both friends and also competitors than you do like maybe your family or whatever for parts of the year. It's a lot of time. These are the people in your orbit, and every beat is a little bit different. I've observed other beats more when I was an intern on the Texas Rangers at the time. It's changed over there since, but like people would not look each other in the eye. Like it was crazy. There was like deep hatred. And then there are beats, the Minnesota Twins come to like everyone is just buddy. They like transcribe quotes and share them in a big document and all go out to dinner every single night. And it's friendly and that's great. But it's like, is there a line where this gets too friendly? I think the Tigers beat is kind of in between that. I think everyone respects each other, is friendly with each other, on good terms with each other. Spend a lot of time talking with these guys, but there's really not a lot of socializing or much of anything outside of the work setting. I think the original question was like, have you ever been to a strip club with Chris McCoskey? So I never have. That's just the truth. Chris is a great guy. I have a ton of respect for him. Chris tends to kind of do his own thing when he's on the road. He keeps to himself a lot. The other guys, every now and then, if there's a airport bar or hotel bar, like maybe there'll be a little bit, but I kind of wish there were a little more of the social factor. I'm probably just a little more down to go out and hang than maybe some of the others on the beat. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but that's kind of the dynamic. I wish I could get these guys out a little more often, if I'm being real.
Yeah, I mean, I can say I was there every night of winter meetings. I didn't see.
How many other Tigers writers did you see?
I saw Chris once. He just kind of walked by me. He seemed like a man on the mission, so I respected that. And I think that's it. So
well, there you have
it. That's that I'll just kind of leave that there. All right. A lot of fun.
All good guys. Good guys.
Yeah, awesome. Good to hear, I think, there. So anything else, Cody, before we jet out of here?
No. I think we've been waiting on that question for like 2 years. Yeah. You can check back in Tiger territory after dark. We can talk more about that sometime. No, that's all I get. That's how you know it's time for the regular season to start.
Yeah.
Let's go. It is a little bit of a bittersweet feeling leaving spring training. I talk about how it gets long. It's kind of a grind. Sometimes it gets boring, but then it wraps up and you're kind of like, there's something still kind of magical about like the new beginnings and baseball under the sun and all that fun stuff. It feels a little strange leaving Lakeland every year.
Yeah, that's true. And going out west and it's going to, seeing the World Series champs and all that stuff. The season's going to start real fast. Yeah. Real fast. So happy opening week, everybody. We made it. Well, a little programming note. We'll have bold predictions, that kind of stuff. Fun little season preview on Wednesday, and then Thursday night, Friday morning, however it works out, we'll do a podcast reacting to one game. So it'll be super overreaction, super intense, based on what happens in that first game. Looking forward to that and doing this throughout the season. So thank you everybody for subscribing. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, X, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran _Steckley. Pod page is at Tiger Territory _. So 5-star review if you feel so inclined. For Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.